So this is part one of two short algebra lessons. I'm breaking it into two sections to hopefully make things a little easier for you. This is a little deviation from your workbook this year, but I think it seems to have worked well for both automotive and HVAC, so hopefully it'll work well for you folks. So we're going to look at a little bit of algebra. We're just going to look at solving equations. We're going to look at how we use formulas, and this will help us out as we work through some area and volume questions. And it's going to actually be quite important for us to be able to do some questions just based on for rearranging equations, because when we do trig in second semester, you're going to need to know a little bit of algebra to work with Pythagorean theorem and to work with the sine and cosine ratio. So for some of you, you're going to look at this and you'll go, I don't even have to think about it because I remember my pre-cal really well, or I remember algebra really well. For others of you, you're going to struggle with it a little bit, but if you just break it down, keep it simple, that will help you through. So don't be scared of it. If you get stuck with it, please stop in to see me. It's really not as difficult as you think. And I haven't had anybody fail an algebra section on me. So I don't think that has anything to do with me, but everything to do with the students. And this year's students are every bit as competent and able to do their work as other years. So I'm sure even if you get a little bit lost, you'll figure it out. All right, so just follow through the examples and you'll be fine. So we're going to start with just some easy questions, some really easy questions, so easy that you probably don't need to do algebra for them, but this proves that we do algebra every day. So x plus 2 equals 10. So what plus 2 equals 10? Well, it's probably not really difficult to figure out. 8 plus 2 equals 10. We don't even have to think about the algebra for it. So we know what number we should get for x. Let's use the algebra to prove what it is that we get and why we get that. So the equal sign means equal. So whatever you do to one side of an equal sign, you have to do the same thing to the other. They have to be treated equally. So we're going to do right now what we call in math combining like terms. So we have, let me just turn my tablet on here. So on the left-hand side of this equation, we have an x. That's one type of term. It's a term that includes a letter. In this case, it's the term x. We also have a 2, and specifically it's a plus 2. It's a positive 2. Because that's a number, that's another type of term. It doesn't have any letters attached to it. It is the same as any other term that's there with just numbers. So you'll notice on the right-hand side of the equation, we have a 10. That would be considered a term. It's not like the x term because it doesn't have an x. It's just a number term, but it's like the 2. So we want to put the like terms, the terms that are similar, so the numbers without letters on one side of our equation and the numbers with letters on the other side of the equation. If you think of it like that, it's actually pretty easy. We're just sorting things. So how do I move a plus 2 to the other side? Basically, we want to have no numbers on this side. Well, how would I make that plus 2 a 0? If you have $2 in your bank account, we'll stop student money here. If you have $2 in your bank account, how do you get it down to 0? Well, you're going to take 2 away. Math is that easy. Algebra is that easy. So in order to move the 2 to the other side, we're going to subtract 2 from this side. Whatever we do to one side, we need to do to the other side. We subtract 2 from the other side. I will often put a line through and sometimes a little arrow on it to say goes to 0. That's my reminder that that's a 0 now. And I found it works really well for helping students that struggle with algebra. Now on this side, this has gone to 0, so I don't need to do anything with that. I'm left with x equals, if I took 2 away from this side, I need to take 2 away from the other side, x equals 8. Very simple math. We knew that before we started the question. Now, we're not always going to have easy numbers where you can just do it in your head, but you'll use the same steps. Let's say we want to do a check. In order to do a check, we put 8 where x is. So we say 8 plus 2 equals 10. Is that true? Well, 10 equals 10. It's true. So we've done our work correctly. So it's really easy. And you're not going to really get much more complicated than this. Throw a fraction line in there, it'll freak you out a little bit, but that's okay. Show you how to deal with that and make it simple. Well, it's all about making things simple. So let's look at this question. 6x equals 24. Whenever you see a number and a letter next to each other, it means multiply. So when we're finding x, we want to move the numbers to the other side. Now, over in this question, we were connected with addition. And you'll notice because we were connected with addition, or was connected by +2, we had to subtract. We are undoing the math by doing the opposite operation. Well, if we have 6 times x equals 24, in order to move that 6, we need to undo the math. So the opposite of multiply is divide. So we are going to divide both sides by 6. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other because they're equal. Okay? 6 on the bottom and 6 on the top and 6 on the bottom. If you saw 6 over 6 in your fraction section, you should know that that's equal to 1. So that means we can cancel these out because if we just have 1x, that's just x. We can only cancel them out because of the 6 on the top and 6 on the bottom. Now we're left with x equals 24 divided by 6 leaves us with 4. If you want to check that work, 6 times 4 equals 24. The little dot means multiply too. It's a thing that I do that's remnant from doing some algebra. I'm doing calculus. And 6 times 4, and it's part of it's because if you put the multiply sign, it can look like an X. So we often use a little dot. So if you want to use a little dot for a multiply sign, you can do that. Just make sure I can tell it's not a decimal. So 6 times 4 is 24 equals 24. We're good. So there's our check. You don't always have to check your work, but if it's something that's complicated and I'm not sure if I did that right, do a little check. It'll give you the confidence that perhaps you need. So those are one-step questions, nice, easy questions. Now we're going to throw in another step. Again, we have nice, easy numbers to work with. Now the first question is slightly complicated. Carpenters want to avoid negative numbers. So we're going to avoid negative numbers as much as possible. It is possible that you could have a negative number show up occasionally. Usually if you have a negative number, maybe I've made an error. We don't usually like to deal with negative numbers simply because you can't take a negative measurement. You can have a negative bank account. So if a client owes you money and you have a credit line, your finances are negative. If that credit line is worth $40,000 and you haven't touched it, you can't say you have $40,000. You have access to $40,000, but that's going to give you negative money at the end. So those kinds of things, if you have a car loan, banks, if you're building a house, they'll want to know about all of your loans. They want to know how much negative do you have? Do you have enough positive to balance it out? And basically, how much in the hole do they think you can realistically go and still be able to afford to live and pay back your debt? So that's, they call it debt to equity ratios and all that kind of stuff. We're not going to deal with that too much. I think we probably would be really useful for some of you, but we don't have time to work with that so much. So we're going to avoid negative numbers. So starting with this question, 36 minus x. Let's just look at what we were doing last time with our numbers. So the last time we said, well, this is a 36 and this is a 21. They're like terms. We want to put them together. So in order to move the 36, we need to make it go to a 0. So that would be take away 36 and take away 36. What's that going to leave us? Well, 0 take away x would leave us with a negative x equals 21 minus 36. Ugh, that's ugly. So let's go back to the beginning and let's see, can we do this without having a negative number? You can do it with negative numbers. I know some of you will remember your math well and you can do it with negative numbers. I'm going to show you how to do it without negative numbers to avoid complications for those students that struggle with negatives. It's not that you can't use negatives. It's just that we don't often use it in our day-to-day examples and people sometimes forget the rules of positive and negative integers. Let's turn this x, it's a minus x. Let's turn it into a positive. Let's move it to the other side. So what if I add x to this side? And add x to this side. Well, if I take these two, a minus x and a plus x equals 0. So now I'm left with 36 equals 21 plus x. I have positive x here. Positive x makes us happy. Now I need to move the 21. We want to put that 21, it looks like we made us an extra step, but we really kind of did. We want to move that 21 over to the other side. In order to do that, I need to subtract it. I have to subtract it because this 21 is positive, so I'm going to take 21 away to make it go to 0. So now this is 0. 36, take away 21. For some reason, that math seems so much easier than when you say it the other way around. This leaves us with 15 equals x. This is a really good kind of question to do a check on because it's an easy question to make a mistake in. And if you do a check, it'll probably help you catch your mistake. So 36 minus 15 equals 21. Is that true? And we get 21 equals 21. So we're good. So that's just our check. Let's look at the next question. Here we have 36 minus 9 equals 21. Well, we know we need to put all the like terms together, so things without x's all need to be on the same side. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to leave that 3x separate because it's a term that includes an x, so we're going to save it till the end in order to do our work with. Okay, it's already a positive, there's no negative sign in front of it. If there was a negative sign in front of it, we might want to move it to turn it to a positive sign. If we move it to the other side of the equal sign, it's going to be positive. But in this case, it's already positive, so no extra work. So let's move our 9. To move it to the other side, we're going to add 9. 3 minus 9 plus 9, those go to 0. So now I'm left with, so these two are gone, I'm left with 3x equals 21 plus 9 is 30. Divide both sides by 3. X, so the 3's cancel, 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom makes a 1, so that leaves us with 1x equals 30 divided by 3 is 10. I won't do a check for all of them, I'll let you kind of do some of the checks yourself. All right, let's look at our next question. Now we're going to come into some two-step questions. We're going to get a little bit more complicated. You'll notice there's x's on both sides of the equation. There's numbers on both sides of the equation. How do we handle this scenario? We're going to do exactly the same thing as we did before, except we're going to have to move some x's too. What I would suggest is always move the smallest numbers first. Usually that will make it the easiest for you. So instead of moving our 7x to be on this side, let's pick the smallest number of x's, which is negative x, and we're going to move that one. We want to put all the x's on one side, so we're going to put all the x's together with on the side with the most x's. So 63, take away x. Let's add an x to this side, because that'll make that go to a 0. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So now I have 8x plus 7 equals 63. We still have two different kinds of terms on this side, so we need to move the 7. To do that, we need to subtract it. It's a positive 7, so we take away 7 in order to balance it out. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. These two are now 0. You could do this in one step at the beginning if you wanted. I'm breaking it down so that you don't make errors. Depending on your confidence level and your ability, you may find that you can do a couple little shortcuts. Just make sure you get it right at the end. Now over here, we're left with just 8x equals 63, take away 7, leaves us with 56. Divide both sides by 8. Typically dividing is going to be your last step. And x is equal to 56 divided by 8 is 7. Now this is a great one. We'll do a check on this one. We won't do a check on the next one. 7 times 7 plus 7 equals 63 minus 7. Okay, these both sides should be equal if we're correct. So 63 take away 7 is 56. And then over here, 7 times 7 is 49 plus 7. 49 plus 7 is 56. So 56 equals 56. We've done it correctly. Let's do it again. So like I said, find the side with the most x's. and we're going to move everything to that, all the x's to that side. So you have 6x on this side and 4x on this side. Let's combine the x's. 4x take away 4x goes to 0. 6x take away 4x leaves me with 2x. Now we need to move our 9 to the other side. So we're going to subtract 9 from both sides. 2x equals 25. Take away 9 leaves me with 16. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 8. I like to put boxes around things at the end. It's not a requirement, but it does help you easily identify where your final answer is and just clarify sometimes the answer that you want corrected. Last kind of question we'll do today is, what do we do if we have brackets? Brackets are really easy to deal with. We're going to get rid of the brackets. So if you have brackets in a question, get rid of them first. And there's two ways to get rid of brackets. First, I'm going to show you what I call the distributive property. So the distributive property means that this is 3 times everything in the brackets. So we need to distribute this 3 to both of these numbers. So we're going to do 3 times 8, and we're going to do 3 times x. So that's our distributive properties. We distribute the 3 to everything inside. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 3 times x is 3x. I often will draw these arrows in. I still draw arrows in. That's not just a rookie thing. It's a way of keeping track of what you've multiplied. I find sometimes if you don't keep a log of it, it's really easy to miss something. And I guess when I was doing calculations, even in university, sometimes there would be a lot of things inside the brackets and you want to make sure you got them all, you didn't miss anything. So just using little arrows to connect helped to make sure that you expanded the way you were supposed to. So that's a good little trick to use. It's my little trick. So we have 3x on this side, no x's on the other side. This is a positive 3x, so we don't need to move it to change the sign. So let's move our 24. And this is a question where you're going to get stuck with a negative. So this has gone to 0. 24 minus 24 is 0. 3x, it's a positive 3x, so it's going to stay positive. 9 take away 24 is what? 9 take away 24 leaves us with 15. But it's a negative 24, so that's negative 15. We're $15 in the hole. 3 times x is negative 15, so when you divide both sides by 3. X equals, if you have negative 15 bucks and you divide it between the debt between 3 friends, everybody's going to owe $5, so it's negative 5 for an answer. This time we are going to have a negative number. Most of the time, though, if you see a negative number, you can assume you probably should do a double check. Okay. One of those little things to look at. All right, let's go over to this side. We have 8 plus x equals 3x plus 2. Let's get rid of our brackets first because brackets make things look complicated. So let's expand. So the 8 plus x side, we don't need to do anything to, equals 3x plus 3 times 2 is 6. Now let's move things together. More x's are on the right-hand side, so we're going to move this x. Subtract from both sides. 8 equals 3x minus x leaves me with 2x, so this is a minus 1x, plus 6. Move the 6 to the other side. Subtract 6. This is a 0 now. This has gone to a 0. All right, now I'm left with 2x equals 8 minus 6 is 2. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 1. My least favorite question is when you get in x equals 0 because it can feel like a heck of a lot of work to get to 0 for an answer. It is possible to get 0 for an answer. It usually throws people for a loop. And those are the basic kind of questions that you need to be able to solve in order to do some of these algebra questions. The question type you will do the most of these two particular questions, you're more likely to see the one that's on the left, this 3 times 8 plus x equals 9. That style you will see when we do perimeter, and you're going to have to be able to solve for, it's going to be a length or a width. You'll see that kind of question show up. You won't see a lot of algebra, but you will see a little bit, and this gives us just a little introduction.